Today on Notsam Wrestling, Cody Rhodes is back, and he's back with a main event for Money in the Bank. Wrestlemania gets moved. There's a new Paul Heyman guy. Drew McIntyre may be on his way out. And what is to be done with Karrion Kross? This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome. Here we are. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling, and I've got to tell you, there's a lot going on, and I know that there's a lot going on because I track these things by emergency podcasts. The emergency podcast is one that has it's got a lot of integrity to it. You can't just do an emergency podcast for no reason. As a matter of fact, I was asked on Twitter, when do they just become regular podcasts? I told him Monday morning is when they just become regular podcasts, because here we are coming off of not one, not two, but three emergency podcasts in a row, many of which we will tackle here today in a little bit more depth now that we've had some time pass, but not the least of which, of course, was our reaction to Saturday night's main event. And as much as there was reaction to be had after the first match and the results of the first match and the reveal of who the new Paul Heyman guy was, or is he really a Paul Heyman guy? I've got a lot to say about that. The big reaction came at the end of the night when Cody Rhodes' music hit for the first time since he walked into Las Vegas. Cody Rhodes' music hit for the first time since he wrestled John Cena. Cody Rhodes' music hit for the first time in over a year, with Cody Rhodes not being the WWE champion. And it happened on Saturday night's main event. So we have our R-Truth John Cena match. R-Truth comes out looking like $1 million. First, the fact that they both came out to John Cena's music, like Truth not only dressed like John Cena, but came out to John Cena's music. We didn't even get a what's up, which was probably a relief for him, the fact that he didn't have to wrap himself to the ring this time. But still, like, John Cena's music hits. John Cena makes them kill the music, makes them do his intro, and then John Cena's music hits again, and here's R-Truth. A lot of questions, in terms of the order of entry, because traditionalists will tell you that no. The champion is supposed to be announced second, unless there's a reason for it. For instance, if you're Jey Uso, and you have a very long introduction, and we have commercial breaks to get to, which we will discuss here on Not Sam Wrestling, or you're John Cena, and coming out to John Cena's music, the bit is kind of spoiled if you do it before John Cena's music plays the first time, right? So R-Truth comes out, and I got to get the R-Truth t-shirt, the Ron Cena last time, this time, the last time, whatever, the final year tour t-shirt, where it's an illustrated picture of R-Truth and just a little piece of tape that says Ron over John. And you know what? R-Truth got some offense in. R-Truth got to hit those 5 moves of doom. And I think the fact that they made this a non-title match, I saw this discussion, right? I saw that there were people that said maybe, just maybe, R-Truth is going to win this match, which at no point did I think R-Truth is going to win this match. As a matter of fact, like, I found it odd that anybody took umbrage with it being a non-title match. In my opinion, there's 2 reasons it was a non-title match. One, the practical reason was it being a non-title match explained why it wasn't in the main event of the show. You couldn't have it main event the show, because then your angle that you're going to main event the show with, that you're going to close the show with Jey and Cody and Logan and Cena, that can't happen if Truth and Cena main event the show. And one would assume that if you got John Cena defending the WWE Championship in a serious way, it's going to main event the show. The other being, if you're this much of a stickler, right? Like, I'm sitting there going, like, title or non-title, like, this is the one match that John Cena is going to be able to win with a clean finish. Like, he's not going to have to cheat. It's not Randy Orton. I mean, God bless R-Truth, but it's not Randy Orton or Cody Rhodes that you kind of have to, although he didn't ultimately win with a clean finish, he still won with that low blow. But regardless, I said, John Cena's not going to lose. He's not going to lose the match. So what difference does it make if it's title or non-title? And then there's traditionalists that were like, well, to have the prestige, it should be a title match. Okay, well, if you're that much of a traditionalist, God bless R-Truth, what matches has he won that would bring him into contention for the WWE Championship if you're going to take it that seriously? I think if you're taking it seriously enough that you're wondering why it was a non-title match, then you should take it seriously enough to wonder why R-Truth would get a title shot when, he hasn't moved up the rankings in the proper way. I think sometimes we all got to be like, okay, look, these are story beats at this point. But nevertheless, we get our match, Truth and Cena. There is this moment where Cena's going to hit R-Truth with the belt. We're going to see the same finish that we saw with Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania on R-Truth. And Truth looks at him like, what are you doing, John? And it stops John in his tracks. It stops John long enough that he has to hand the title back over to the referee because the referee turns around and sees what's going on. And for a moment, I said, oh, maybe this was kind of what was being set up at the end of Backlash, where John Cena is starting to be like, you know what, maybe I don't want to be this guy. Maybe I don't want to. And I said, this is interesting. And he hands the title to the referee. And when the referee's back is turned because he's giving the title back to the timekeeper, boom, kick in the nuts. I was fooled. John Cena was not having second thoughts. He kicked R-Truth in the nuts, allowing him to get the victory, and then post-match levels R-Truth with the WWE Championship. We have seen our R-Truth John Cena match on the John Cena Farewell Tour. And then after the match, was kind of exactly what I thought it would be. It was even a little more. For a second, I said, okay, once they added the fifth match to this show, once they added Chelsea and Zelina, I said, I wonder, because some of these matches are going to have to be quick, I would imagine. I wonder if it's going to be like a quick squash to really ruin wrestling. But, R-Truth got his 5 moves of doom in. He got an attitude adjustment in. Well, what more can you ask? After the match, of course, Cena and Jey Uso have their confrontation. I like that confrontation because not only was it the two champions, not only did Jey Uso get to show himself as being confident enough to stand with his chest out to John Cena, on Jay's road to becoming world heavyweight champion, that chest was tucked. Now the chest is out, and he kept it out when John Cena was around. But we got to build on that tension of the fact that Jey Uso did eliminate John Cena from the Royal Rumble. That since this year started, John Cena has lost one match. The Royal Rumble match. He won the Elimination Chamber. He won at WrestleMania. He beat Randy Orton. He beat R-Truth. The only match he's lost on his retirement tour is the Royal Rumble match. And ultimately, Jey Uso is the one that handed him defeat. So there is foundation there. John, very robotic in his way of delivery, very robotic in his way of talking. Like John, I feel like slips into the cop from Terminator 2 very quickly. John as a heel slips into when he's, and maybe this is, and listen, people are acting like they've never seen this before. If you've seen Total Bellas before, you've seen heel John Cena. And by the way, on Total Bellas, heel John Cena would slip into the cop from Terminator 2. But that is what he slips into. Keep that in mind now. If you've seen Terminator 2, when he comes out, I guess he's going to be on SmackDown on Friday. He's going to start talking like the cop from Terminator 2. And you're going like, yeah, and guess what? Cop from Terminator 2, he was a heel. So maybe we're on to something here. Whatever. He and Jay and John Cena plants that seed where he says, imagine if I left the WWE with the championship and your title was around the waist of a YouTuber. Wouldn't that ruin wrestling? And all of a sudden, we understand the motivation. All of a sudden, it's right there. Jey Uso and Logan Paul have their match. Pretty good match. Logan hits Jay with that fist. Jay's able to kick out. Jay hits his finish. Referee gets pulled out of the ring. John Cena's out there. We watch the beatdown of Jey Uso at the hands of Logan Paul and John Cena together. We think for a moment, oh my God, they're actually going to put the title on Logan Paul. This is going to be terrible. Then that music hits. That Cody Rhodes music hits. And that reaction, as I talked about on the Emergency podcast, that reaction that so many skeptics wondered if it would be there. Go on YouTube and look up Cody Rhodes is dead. Because there are so many small-time wrestling content creators that were telling us that Cody Rhodes will never recover from this. Because apparently they just started watching wrestling at the end of last year and figured now is the time to impart my wisdom onto everybody. Cody Rhodes will never recover. He's going to have to turn heel. It's going to be his only option. And what happens? He shows up in Tampa, Florida, and from the first note of that song, they weren't even expecting him. They weren't chanting Cody, Cody. When CM Punk came out on Monday Night Raw unexpectedly, people wanted him. They were chanting his name. And then people go wild. People love CM Punk, and that's great. Nobody was expecting Cody Rhodes. And the minute, we didn't even get to it was and everybody went, Tampa became unglued. And the babyface hero is back. Now, it's really interesting because I've seen some of the feedback on this, and a lot of people thought this was a great angle and a great way to end a show. And the more cynically inclined would tell you, I don't know what this WWE is doing. They're teaming up John Cena and Logan Paul together. They're just thinking these two mainstream guys. This isn't what wrestling is about. Wrestling isn't about what draws the most eyeballs. No? Anyway, to watch people actively complain about heels and go like, you know who I don't like? The bad guys. I don't know what's going on in WWE right now. I hate those bad guys, and I kind of like the good guys. They don't know what they're doing. It's like, come on. Get a hold of yourself. Did you hear the building? Did you hear the reaction? Did you hear the way everything was executed? Do you think that's going to change when they get to Los Angeles? Yeah, they're going to cheer the bad. No. I mean, Logan Paul, say what you want about him, and people hate him, and God bless him. But ultimately, people are going to boo the team of Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes, and Logan Paul and John Cena. Logan Paul is enough to tip the scale. Well, once John Cena gets in the ring, will they still chant, let's go Cena, Cena sucks? Of course. We're having too good of a time not to do that, and that's fine. But they're going to cheer Cody and Jay, and they're going to boo Cena and Logan Paul. Jay hits it. Now, also, as soon as John Cena pulled the referee out of the ring, the match should have ended. It should have been a disqualification. It should have been a no contest. It should have been something. Even if the referee was like, I have no idea who pulled me out of the ring. I see John Cena out here. It cost Jay. I don't know who did it. We call it a no contest. Once hands are on the official, that's kind of it, right? But we got to have our happy ending, and that's fine. I'm not so caught up in all that. And I think that the more I thought about it, the more I was like, because I look at things from a big picture a lot of times. And I think it is easy to get lost in the sort of day-to-day frustrations, in the sort of what is in front of my face right now and what are my frustrations with it. And that's natural. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that is how we're hardwired to sometimes receive things. But realistically, I couldn't help, man, watching Cody Rhodes, and again, just sitting there realizing, like, this is a special, special guy. This guy is bulletproof. This guy is absolutely bulletproof when it comes to this stuff. The fact that after everything, like, most talent would not be able to come back after WrestleMania 39 and be even stronger by WrestleMania 40. And Cody was able to do it. Most talent, when The Rock showed up and said, I'm taking the main event, would not be able to build up enough support that it would push The Rock out. Because we would love to see The Rock and Roman Reigns main event WrestleMania, except for Cody. And most talent, had they gone into WrestleMania, gotten booed, and then lost in a match to John Cena that Travis Scott, of all people, interfered with, most people would not be able to come back from that and still be a massive babyface. But Cody Rhodes can. That's how good Cody Rhodes is. Those are the details in Cody Rhodes that I don't think anybody else could pull off, especially long term, the way Cody Rhodes pulls them off. I think that's massive. Look, ultimately, I'm hoping. Here's what I'm hoping for. Here's what I'd like to see. I always like when criticisms are acknowledged and then played into the story. What I would really like to see is I would like to see John Cena and Logan Paul be that thing about the WWE that fans on the internet complain about. I want John Cena and Logan Paul to blur that line. That thing that you get that wrestling fans have always gotten when it's like you're paying too much attention to the mainstream and not enough attention to us. I want Logan Paul and John Cena to represent that. And I want Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso to represent us. I want Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso to represent wrestling. Jey Uso, who we've watched toil through the WWE system for 15 years to finally ascend to the World Heavyweight Championship. Cody Rhodes, who the story is as old as time, had to leave the WWE 9 years ago and go through the independents and Ring of Honor and TNA to create AEW to ultimately come back and sit on the throne that he had to build in order to sit upon it. But he did it through wrestling. He did it through the things that we as wrestling fans value. And that's what makes him a good guy, and that's what makes Jey Uso a good guy. Let's not forget the magic that occurred for that short period of time when Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes won the WWE Tag Team Championship. Let's not forget that I would argue that this whole phase, Jey Uso has worked in phases. And this final form, Jey Uso, this final phase, Yeet Jey Uso, who's got everybody in the world buying his t-shirt, was really formed at that press conference with Cody Rhodes. That press conference where Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso sat together after maybe having had a few libations, and we're being goofy together, and we're saying yeet, and we're acting friendly with each other, and we're being the guys that they actually are. We got a look of what may go on behind the scenes when the match is over, and the guys can just celebrate and take the edge off. And we go, those are guys that I would hang with. Those are guys who love wrestling. And that's the team that we're seeing form up against this team that as wrestling fans, we are hardwired to hate. Now, some of you guys, of course, are going to not enjoy the story, and that's fine. And there are criticisms about John Cena's entire heel run. And I think that it has had a very wonky start in terms of actually kind of zeroing in on what the motivation is, the why, and the where it's going. But ultimately, if the motivation is ruining wrestling, Logan Paul becomes a pretty great example of what a lot of us wrestling fans could see as a ruination of wrestling. And therefore, this thing that we feel for real becomes part of a story. And feelings that we may have had coming out of WrestleMania 41 are now looped in. The real life feelings that we had are now looped into what the story is. So it all gets blurred. It all gets put into a pot and mixed up together. And we don't know if we're upset about the quote unquote shoot direction of the company, or we're upset about the kayfabe storytelling that's going on. Either way, we're paying attention, hopefully. And until we're not, things are working. You know what I mean? And I feel like Cody was showing up just at the right time. Now, the interesting thing is, right, because to me, I feel like the reason to have this tag team match is because Cody Rhodes can pin John Cena. And in this tag team match, that is exactly what should happen. Not pin Logan Paul, not Jay pin Logan, not Jay pin John, not Cody pin Logan. I want to see Cody Rhodes pin John Cena in this tag team match. All of a sudden, Cody Rhodes has back that loss that he suffered at WrestleMania. Now, if that does happen, does that mean we go to SummerSlam with John Cena and Cody Rhodes? Clearly, we're going to have another John Cena and Cody Rhodes match. I would think that John Cena, Cody Rhodes is the moment when John Cena loses the title. SummerSlam feels early to me. SummerSlam is what, August 1st? I mean, it is a 2-night SummerSlam. So the idea of Cody and John in the rematch at SummerSlam is a big SummerSlam match. But so is CM Punk and John Cena. And then a month after SummerSlam, you've got Clash in Paris. So can you put off, and maybe the idea is that Cody Rhodes pins John Cena at Money in the Bank in 2 weeks. And then John Cena spends some time telling Cody Rhodes that he has not earned it. He has not earned his rematch. There is no automatic rematch clause. And he has not earned it. And he has to prove it to John Cena. And then maybe you come, or maybe that's when you bring Randy back. And Randy says, I don't think you should get a rematch with John Cena. I want a rematch with John Cena. And maybe you do Cody and Randy before Cody can get a rematch with John Cena. Maybe that's how you extend it. Or maybe you don't extend it at all. Because I would think that the minute John Cena loses the title is when we start shifting back into babyface John Cena. And to me, I felt like that was going to happen more towards the fall, that we're going to kind of cruise through the summer with John Cena as a heel. And if SummerSlam is a title match between John and Cody, that becomes very difficult to do. So I do wonder how exactly that's going to happen. That feels soon for me. But, a lot of things feel a lot of ways to me. Doesn't make that much of a difference, right? I will tell you this, that I did wonder, why would you not put Logan Paul with the Paul Heyman group? It felt so natural to me. And the reason not to do it would be because we are heading towards John Cena and Logan Paul as a team. And you don't want John Cena unless you're going to have, because ultimately the Paul Heyman group is not playing the same game that John Cena's playing. John Cena's plan, because I've seen people go thinking about combining this, but John Cena's plan is to ruin wrestling. The Paul Heyman group's plan is not to ruin wrestling at all. Paul Heyman's group's plan is to make sure that wrestling is safe in the future. They see themselves as the people that are going to bring wrestling in the future. They're just shaping the future of wrestling in their image. John Cena is looking to make it so that wrestling has no future whatsoever. So they have totally separate goals. So that's why I don't see combining them. But instead of Logan Paul, I was right about Saturday night's main event being the spot where you would have a new member of Paul Heyman's group. I was wrong about who it would be. So we're having this tag match, right? Great tag match, Punk and Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. We're cheering the good guys, we're booing the bad guys. All is good. All of a sudden, Sami is trying to take out Braun Breaker, and Seth tries to interfere, and the referee's distracted. Then Paul Heyman interferes, and then Sami turns around, and while Sami is turned around, CM Punk is getting up on the outside of the ring next to the guardrail, and boom, out of nowhere, big Bronson Reed is back, and he is in this group. Big Bronson Reed shows up, sends CM Punk careening through that guardrail, and the bad guys are able to get the pin. The bad guys win this match, and Bronson Reed enters the ring, and Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed are staring each other down, and Seth Rollins steps in front of him, and Seth Rollins gives Braun Breaker a hug. And this, to me, is a very valuable piece of this entire thing. Seth Rollins gives Braun Breaker a hug. When Seth Rollins gives Braun Breaker a hug, Paul Heyman has this look of surprise on his face. Paul Heyman has this look on his face like, I didn't expect this. This is so great. I'm so relieved. Immediately, what this tells me is this is not a Paul Heyman group, as a lot of people are establishing it. Even on commentary, they're making references to the group being dangerous, right? They're coupling it with the Dangerous Alliance. But ultimately, the Dangerous Alliance was called the Dangerous Alliance because it was managed by Paul E. Dangerously, and it was his group. What makes groups belong to Paul Heyman is that Paul Heyman is the mastermind. He's the puppeteer. He's in control of these factions. And what I saw on Saturday night's main event was clear-cut evidence that Paul Heyman is not in control. The Paul Heyman has acknowledged, for lack of a better term, Seth Rollins' ability and his vision. And that, again, what makes all this stuff different, right, is that CM Punk was a Paul Heyman guy. He was there to sit under the learning tree of Paul Heyman. Brock Lesnar used Paul Heyman as the advocate for Brock Lesnar, meaning Paul Heyman did all the talking for Brock Lesnar. Roman Reigns, he used Paul Heyman as the wise man, meaning that Paul Heyman was the special counsel. Paul Heyman was the one to get everything done for Roman Reigns, but also was the one that said, my tribal chief, if I may. Seth Rollins has Paul Heyman there to get the dirty work done, but ultimately Seth Rollins is the one with the hands on the wheel. For the first time in all of these relationships, Paul Heyman is not the one doing the driving in the car. Seth Rollins is clearly the one doing the driving in the car. This is a Seth Rollins faction, not a Paul Heyman faction. When Paul Heyman says that the long-term plan is for Seth Rollins to be the world champion, which I love the language, by the way, because that is language that is used in dirt sheets. That is language that is used when we describe what's going on behind the scenes in professional wrestling organizations. That you go, why is this happening with this character? Well, the long-term plan is. And now we're seeing that unfold into the storytelling of it all. And it lends authenticity. It makes it so it makes sense. You know, I enjoy that. I enjoy, again, that blurring of the line. But clearly Seth Rollins is the one who came up with that plan and said, if you're on board, you may join. And Paul Heyman said, I am on board. And Braun Breaker, if you are on board, you may join. We are going to shape the future of wrestling. I am going to be the world heavyweight champion. You are going to be put in a position where you will be able to succeed at the highest levels. Agreed, I will join. And now it appears that Bronson Reed has joined the group without the knowledge of Paul Heyman or Braun Breaker, but there's an understanding. Whereas when Solo Sikoa would make plans without consulting Paul Heyman had a huge problem with it. He didn't understand what Solo was doing, and that wasn't the way he and Roman did business. But now that Seth Rollins is doing it because he is the one in full control of the group, Paul Heyman doesn't have a problem with it because he's agreed to a different type of relationship with Seth Rollins. Now, Seth is going to have to explain why several months ago, Bronson Reed and himself were tearing buildings to the floor when he was getting tsunamied through stacks of automobiles, when they were tearing down walls, when they were breaking doors, when they were destroying the arenas that Raw was taking place in. How did they go from that to, hey, you want to join my group? Yes, I would love to join your group. I think it's not a difficult story to tell between Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins. Ultimately, who would know Bronson Reed better than Seth Rollins? The answer is nobody. And the idea that Seth Rollins goes, okay, now, you know what? We've decided we're not waiting for destiny. We're not waiting for people to get on board. We're going to go ahead and create this thing that we've needed to be reality. You know what I'm going to call it? This isn't any longer about friendships. It's not about good guys and bad guys. It's about who can help me the most and in turn be helped by me as they help me. And Bronson Reed is that guy. You know, I don't think it's going to take a lot, but I do think that he is going to have to address it on Monday Night Raw. I think Bronson Reed is great in this group. And I'm surprised that I didn't think of it. I'm surprised that more people didn't suggest it. In the conversations that I was having with people, I didn't hear a lot of Bronson Reed. I've heard a lot of like Austin Theory. I've heard a lot of like those guys. But what you want and what makes this group unique is that when the members of this group show up, they're instant game changers. When the members of this group show up, they're not people that are like losing matches before they join the group. They're people who theoretically shouldn't have to join the group. But now that they have, everybody is in a world of trouble immediately. It's not like, well, if you take him out of the group, he's no longer a threat. He was a threat before. Now he's an even bigger threat because he's protecting that guy. And that sucks because I was trying to take that guy out. That, to me, is the dynamic of the group. And I really enjoy, I like the spot that I really liked was CM Punk getting back in the ring. And then Bronson Reed, like, you know, the rest of the group kind of recoiling, like, oh no. And then Bronson Reed just drops his entire body on CM Punk. Bronson Reed is a throwback big man. Bronson Reed is athletic enough that he could work like, he can work like any big man he wants to. He could work like Bam Bam Bigelow if he wanted to. He could certainly work like Vader if he wanted to. But I feel like Bronson Reed is to me, at least on Saturday night's main event, felt, and I loved it. This is a compliment. It felt like Earthquake. When the Earthquake came in and he took out Hulk Hogan, he was just so big and he just used his mass to destroy Hulk Hogan. When he dropped that Earthquake drop on Hulk Hogan on the Brother Love show and Hulk Hogan's ribs broke and all the Hulkamaniacs had to write letters in to please get better, Hogan. Please, we miss you, Hogan. And we actually looked at it as kids going, I don't know what Hogan's going to be able to do to stop this mass, This is like, and it wasn't like Andre in the sense that Andre was pure mass, especially by WrestleMania 3, especially by, 1987. He's pure mass. Earthquake could still move. Earthquake was like going rope to rope. Earthquake could sell. Earthquake could do all this stuff. So as I compare Bronson Reed to Earthquake, I go, yeah, I don't, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized, like, I don't know that there's been a big man since Earthquake that I feel like has effectively worked that Earthquake style as well as Earthquake did. But I think Bronson Reed has the ability to do it. The ability that I could put Bronson on TV and my kid could watch Reed the way I used to watch Earthquake. I think that's a really, really, really cool thing. And I also think, again, part of the strength of this group is the idea that on the road to fighting Seth Rollins, which theoretically people would want to do, they're going to have to deal with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. Like, most people aren't going to get to Seth Rollins. The idea that I want to fight and beat Seth Rollins so that I can get what he's got. Well, if I have to beat Bronson Reed and then I have to beat Braun Breaker, probably not going to happen. Right? And that's what you want. That's what you want in this group where, like, any members that are added become part of this impenetrable force that is protecting Seth Rollins to make sure that Seth Rollins is able to get to his goal, which is the World Heavyweight Championship. And that now, whoever it is, Jey Uso or whoever's got that title, at some point looks at Seth Rollins and realizes that no matter how many friends you got, I don't care if you got Cody Rhodes in your corner, I don't care if you got Jimmy Uso in your corner, whatever you got in your corner, you're looking down the barrel at Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker and who knows who else. It's insurmountable. It's inevitable. Seth Rollins gets the World Heavyweight Championship. And if you're going to be Seth Rollins, if you're going to be the architect who's also a visionary, and you're going to build a group, that's the exact message that group should have. I was surprised at the result of the Drew McIntyre Damian Priest match, although as news comes out, there are rumors anyway, that Drew McIntyre may be taking time off from WWE, which is a bummer, it would make sense because the match, I thought it was going to be Drew's match and that Drew would then move forward, but the match ended with a concerto pretty definitively and Damian Priest leaving the cage through the door, which I don't know if you guys realized that was the finish of the match, but you must have been watching on mute if you didn't realize it, because Jesse the Body Ventura wanted to make sure that everybody knew that he walked through the door. First of all, I love that Jesse Ventura is back. I love the level of commitment that he puts into this. I love that he doesn't sound like he's lost in a field somewhere. Now, he did not know that Michael Cole competed at WrestleMania. He thought Pat was the last commentator or was the only other commentator that competed at WrestleMania. He did not know that Michael Cole is undefeated, but at WrestleMania, because Michael Cole has lost to John Cena. But regardless, he knows enough. He doesn't know that we stopped talking over the ring announcer in like 1995. There was a time when they talked over the ring announcer. And shout out to Howard Finkel, who opens this podcast, by the way. But there was, when Howard Finkel was the ring announcer, a lot of times they did just talk right over him, which is a shame. But I feel like it must have been sometime in the 90s when they stopped talking over the ring announcer. Jesse Ventura wasn't in the WWE in the 90s, so maybe nobody told him we don't talk over the ring announcer anymore, but he insisted upon it. And then he insisted on going like, we understand that we're selling the fact that Drew McIntyre is just got his brain scrambled by 2 chairs, and that's only 2 weeks after he got his head slammed on the concrete. But screw all that. Who leaves the cage through the door? It's like, by the way, leaving the cage through the door, baby faces have won WWE cage matches by leaving through the door. I mean, for 20 plus years, it's been well established. It really wasn't as much a thing. It certainly wasn't a thing in the territories. I don't even know if those cages had doors. But even in the blue cage days, it wasn't that much of a thing. In the late 80s and the early 90s, you climbed over the cage. That was always the spectacle of it all, you know. But it's been very well established that you can leave the cage through the door. Many people have won cage matches by going through the door. But I mean, Ventura would not stop. I'm sitting there going like, he's going to turn Damian Priest heel. Because unfortunately, he's making so much sense that he's going like, that's right. He was kind of cowardly. He's making so much sense and he won't let it go. And he's so damn entertaining about it that I'm listening to it going, if he doesn't stop, I'm going to start booing Damian Priest. People are going to start booing this guy because he concertoed Drew McIntyre and then left through the door. And then the governor called him a coward. And he wouldn't stop. It really was funny. I think if Drew McIntyre really is leaving, and honestly, if the match is going to end like that, I hope that Drew McIntyre is leaving. I hope it's not for anything serious. I hope that there's nothing medically wrong with him. Maybe there is. Maybe he's going to get better. I don't know. But I mean, in terms of storyline, what we can't have continue to happen with Drew McIntyre is win a big match, lose a big match. Win a big match, lose a big match. Because he's not getting to that finish line, right? He's being used as the guy to get other people to that finish line. He got CM Punk, helped get CM Punk. CM Punk got himself there as well, but he helped get CM Punk to that finish line. Now he's getting Damian Priest to this other spot. He helped get Jey Uso to this other spot. Like, if you keep helping, eventually no one's going to be there to help you. And I think that Drew has earned enough that people want him in that top spot. I hope that he does leave on his own volition. I hope that everything's good with him and his family and everything. But narratively speaking, I think it could be a good thing for Drew to get a bit of a refresh, take a breath, go away for a bit. Because when Drew comes back, if it's any more than, let's say he's gone for 6 months. If Drew McIntyre is off WWE television for 6 months, he's got to come back as a babyface. I mean, if Drew McIntyre is off television, the work that he has done, the credibility that he has built up, all of 2024, building that storyline with CM Punk, coming out of that storyline and starting the thing with the bloodline, not really getting any sort of closure on that, but then starting this thing with Damian Priest and putting all the pieces together, making it make sense, making it seem like this Damian Priest story is a year old itself. Even showing up on SmackDown last week or 2 weeks ago at this point and cutting that 5-minute promo, making this cage match. And you sold everybody. I do hope he's back before the end of the year because I want to see him in a match with John Cena, but maybe it won't happen because by the time he gets back, John Cena may be a babyface. And I don't think there's any way. I mean, you could. Drew McIntyre could come back as a heel. But in my mind, he's a total babyface when he comes back. And he doesn't have to change anything. I don't really think he's got to change anything about who his character is in order for him to be a good guy when he comes back. But mark my words, he's a good guy when he comes back. If you do this the right way, I mean, nobody puts the work in that Drew puts in. Nobody cares the way Drew cares. Drew eats, sleeps, and breathes this wrestling thing. I truly believe that Drew is the guy that if you play this the right way, that if he were to go away right now for months, when he comes back, it could be Triple H at the Garden. If he's really going through some kind of medical thing and you can chronicle that journey a little bit on his road to coming back, I mean, You could build this guy up into the biggest babyface since Cody Rhodes. It'd be massive. You could finally get him back to where he was in 2020. The Royal Rumble 2020. Drew McIntyre was the biggest babyface in the company, and he was on his way to almost being that Cody Rhodes babyface who was just universally beloved. People wanted him to win that Rumble. People wanted him to beat Brock Lesnar. And then boom, pandemic, and we never got back there. We can get back there now. With the work that Drew has done as a heel, I mean, it's right there. It's there for the taking, in my opinion. But, I mean, we'll see. As much as I love when he's on my television set, I think that long-term, really good things can happen for Drew McIntyre. And he can come back and just go straight for the championship. Because it's time. It's time for Drew to be in that position of, no, I'm going to take the title. Who knows? Maybe what you do is you have Seth eventually beat Jay. And Seth, maybe, what if the main event of WrestleMania next year is Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title? What if it is Seth Rollins, and you can tie it back? Oh, God. What if Drew is gone until January? What if, and even if he's not scheduled to be gone until January, keep him gone until January. What if he comes back with don't give me any speculation. Don't give me beautiful day vignettes. Don't give me anything. Put him in the Royal Rumble as a surprise. Have him win the Royal Rumble. And he calls out Seth freaking Rollins. And he calls out Seth Rollins, number one, because Seth is a coward. Number two, because Seth is a liar. And number three, because all of his problems with the bloodline come right back to that weasel in Seth Rollins' corner, Paul Heyman. And Drew being the same guy that tells the truth. Drew being the same guy that works from a point of pure history. Says, I went through all these bloodline guys, but the one that I didn't go through was you, wise man. And now, I'm not going to put my hands on you. I'm going to do the worst thing that you can imagine. I'm going to ruin your plan. Because if I take the world title from Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, you left Roman Reigns for nothing. And I'm going to make sure that happens. And we get to WrestleMania with Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. I probably shouldn't have said it out loud because now I want to see it. But this is where we're at. Now I want to see it. I think, speaking of stories, the Karrion Kross story is absolutely fascinating. Karrion Kross has been somebody that all of us have been talking about a lot in this world of wrestling. The build-up to WrestleMania was strong. The stuff that he was doing on social media was strong. But obviously, the wrestling world was completely changed when he showed up on the WrestleMania Recap podcast and, call it what you want, cut that promo, said what he said about what was going on with AJ Styles and Logan Paul and his predicament and why he felt that way. I mean, he got the entire world talking. I could not believe when I woke up on Monday morning and saw everybody talking about what Karrion Kross had said on the WrestleMania Recap podcast. And I go on Pat McAfee's show, and I didn't know it was coming, but they played the clip and said, what about Karrion Kross saying what he said on your podcast last night, Sam? And the whole world got to talking about it. And he's getting cheered now when he shows up at main event. And when he's in the background of shots on Monday Night Raw, he's getting cheered. His t-shirt became the number one selling t-shirt on WWE Shop and has now become such a popular seller that the t-shirt is for sale in the arena on merch stands. He's out. He just did an interview with Ariel Helwani that did really, really well, kind of explaining where he's coming from and what he's got going on. And the question has been raised. What's next for Karrion Kross? What are we doing with Karrion Kross? And a lot of people will tell you the timing couldn't be better. Money in the Bank, baby. Give Karrion Kross the Money in the Bank briefcase, and then boom, out of a rocket ship. Here we go. Sam, what do you think? They say to me. And you know what I say? I'm the biggest Karrion Kross supporter. He's been in this basement. He's been in this studio with me only a few months ago, talking that talk. I was sitting right next to him on WrestleMania Recap when he cut that promo that got this whole thing blasted off. I am not pro Karrion Kross winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. It's not the direction that I would go in. And I'll tell you why. Because there have been many people who didn't have a lot going on, but had all the momentum in the world because of fan support. There have been a lot of people who fans loved, but they just weren't getting that love shown on television. And the stories just weren't there for them. And then they win the Money in the Bank briefcase. You know, I mean, Dolph Ziggler winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. Many, many people winning the Money in the Bank briefcase in that way. And some of them cash in successfully, and some of them don't. But there are no stories that I can think of people who had not too much going on television, but then all of a sudden got this groundswell of support from fans. And then they win the briefcase, and it takes them on to the superstardom that they so richly deserve. Ultimately, it creates a moment, and then the moment fades. It creates this moment, and then that's all there is to it, just the moment. And you don't want that for Karrion Kross. You don't want the moment. You know, you want a story. You want a career. You want this guy to be a day-to-day part. And you want energy put into it. Ultimately, what is going to bring people success is storylines that have energy put into them, not briefcases and belts. I'm not sitting there going, you know what Karrion Kross needs? Briefcases and belts. No. Karrion Kross needs storylines to get people involved, to bring him to positions that are high matches on the card regularly. Not one, not a briefcase cash in, but regularly. For me, I would say, okay, if we want to go, okay, how do we pay off all this Karrion Kross fan support? I go, okay, I would love to see him involved, like put some depth into the character. I think that what's interesting is Karrion Kross is at his best when he is presented the way he was presented on NXT. And how was he presented on NXT? He killed the entire roster. And it was great. We all loved it. All of us loved it. But you can't kill the main roster like that. You can't just have Karrion Kross go oh, now he's going to beat everybody. Right? Because then you'll have Karrion Kross, but you won't have anybody else. So in my mind, I would say that I wouldn't have Karrion Kross wrestle more necessarily. I might have him wrestle a couple times, right? Like the AJ Styles match, I thought was great because he lost, but he got in a ton of offense. That beast was awakened in him again. I would have him wrestle sometimes, right? I would have him, you'd have a match with him on Raw and they're dominating and he wins. But ultimately, I think what you want is this idea that he was created by fans reflected in the story, meaning that everybody else has plans, but then Kross has this other plan. And you watch Kross have to manipulate to get things to happen the way he wants them to happen. And I think the idea of Karrion Kross having his own soldiers that are out here fighting his battles, and maybe it's not full-time members of a faction. Maybe it's just a system of favors. You're going to want to do this for me because X, Y, and Z. Kind of similar to what he did with The Miz, right? I loved that. When The Miz had no choice but to, or maybe there, whatever it is, there are people who fight his battles for him. And it's not until he runs out of options that he actually gets in the ring himself. But when he does run out of options and he gets in the ring himself, he annihilates people. And maybe Karrion Kross as a character has different goals. Maybe Karrion Kross's goal is not to win the Royal Rumble, be the WWE champion. Maybe Karrion Kross wants to have influence in his own unique way. And that's how you keep Karrion Kross, who kills everybody, out of the world title picture. Because if you have a guy who kills everybody in the world title picture, he's either got to win the world title or get killed. And either way, he's done. So keep him out of the world title picture. Have him influence in his own unique way. Send soldiers out to do all his bidding. But the problem is that once you get through all those soldiers, once he runs out of options, if he does get in the ring, he's going to kill whoever he's in the ring with. And that's why it's almost like people are like, yeah, like I'm going to go after the people that Karrion Kross has working for him. But you almost don't want to leave Karrion Kross without options because you know that once you do, it's Dunsky. That's what I'd like to see kind of, if I were to develop something with Karrion Kross, that's kind of where I would go with it. I say, and I'd even say it's not about briefcases and belts for me. It's about influence. It's about raw power. It's about ascending in a way that people don't see coming. It's about real power, not perception. Real power. I want executive level power. I want the type of power that exists in the shadows, not the type of power surrounded by gold, not the type of power with a spotlight. Who's controlling the spotlight? That's the type of power that I want. That's where I see Karrion Kross going. And that's not only a type of goal that I think that character would cling on to, but like I said, it's a way to get somebody who is absolutely killing people when he's in the ring with them to not be in the ring with your main event guys that you can't kill, because otherwise they wouldn't be your main event guys. Just an idea. Look, just an idea. We'll get right back to it in a second, but fueling up for the day doesn't have to be complicated. Grab a Huel. You all know I love Huel. I've talked about it so much. Why? Because Huel is a complete meal in a bottle. There's no guessing games. There's no weighing. There's no measuring. Who's got time for all that? Their Black Edition, ready to drink, that has 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, lots of fiber, low sugar. No matter what your day has in store, you're going to be fueled up for it. My days are nuts. I got 19 jobs, 45 kids. I need to get my nutrition in to keep this body up. That's why I use Huel. It's available in both chocolate and vanilla. Huel, it tastes like a milkshake. I love it. You never have to sacrifice taste for convenience when it comes to Huel. Start saving time and money without compromising your nutrition today with this exclusive offer for new customers of 15% off plus a free gift using my exclusive code NOTSAM at Huel.com. That's 15% off plus a free gift for new customers with code NOTSAM at Huel.com. See show notes for terms and conditions. Skip the stress, not the nutrition. Try Huel today for complete nutrition, bottled. I know there were, it's interesting. There were a lot of people complaining about the commercials on Saturday night's main event. But realistically, so I timed a bunch of them because there were enough people talking about it. And I got 19 minutes of commercials in the first hour. Now, I believe that everything that's broadcast TV has... I think broadcast TV, you get 44 minutes of television time per hour, which gives you 16 minutes of commercial per hour. I think that is standard. Like a sitcom is 22 minutes long. There's 8 minutes of commercials. 2 sitcoms, 44 minutes long, 16 minutes of commercials. You add, 2, 3 WWE promos in there for the announcement of Evolution, for WWE Shop, for whatever, that's going to give you your 19 minutes of commercials. So I don't know that there were more commercials than usual. They might have been put in spots that made it feel like it was heavy over here or heavy over there because, the opening of Saturday night's main event was like 10 minutes with like the, Tess and Jesse Ventura at the stage and the entrances and all this. And Jay's entrance was long, so we had to do back-to-back commercial breaks over here. But I think ultimately what's gone on is that it used to be the commercials were not a big deal because Saturday night's main event was a close to premium, let's call it pay-per-view because it's back in the day, a close to pay-per-view level show on free TV. You didn't have to pay for the pay-per-view. So you watch, some commercial breaks. It's not a big deal because you're getting this show for free. The problem is that streaming has changed everything. And streaming, and I'm finding this, that like people used to they complain about commercials being there, but it was a given that they would be there. I think it's very interesting that people are getting tired of commercials, and it's because people are so used to watching things streaming. It's because people are so used to not having to sit through those commercial breaks. It's because people are so used to watching, say, Raw on Netflix, or this idea that, look, Saturday night's main event is on free television. Where do we watch our premium live events? Peacock. Where do a lot of WWE fans probably also watch Saturday night's main event? Peacock. If it's offered on the same service as all the other premium live events are, why wouldn't you watch it on that service, right? So now the user experience is the same as any premium live event is. except it's got 16, 17, 18 minutes of commercials an hour. So of course you're going to be like, what is this? But in reality, it's kind of old school and new school coming together in a way, that I don't know that people were ready for. And I'm sure that this isn't just a wrestling thing. It goes through all television entirely. Like I said, one of those promos, of course, was the big announcement. We're getting Evolution 2 is finally coming. They announced that it's coming to Atlanta, Georgia on July 12th, which is the same day as AEW All In. We're going to get a Saturday night's main event show on NBC. And then July 13th, the Sunday after, we're going to get Evolution 2, which is something that a lot of people have asked for a very long time. I don't remember what year the first Evolution was, but with the way the women's roster has grown and the way they're being fed in from NXT, the fact that, Roxanne Perez is on Raw, the fact that Julia is on SmackDown, the fact that on SmackDown right now, on the Emergency podcast, we addressed the Wyatt Six returning. But we also talked about how on SmackDown, the tag division is being filled out so much. The same as can be said for the women's division on SmackDown. The women's division on SmackDown is really like right under our nose, starting to have a lot of depth added to it. The stuff that Chelsea Green is doing with Zelina, the stuff that Jade Cargill is doing and Naomi. You got Tiffany Stratton over here. You got Alexa Bliss over here and Charlotte over here. Like, finally, and this is what I said a long time ago. To me, I don't mind secondary titles being added to the women's division, but I thought even more so, more stories. You don't need titles if you have great stories. And it feels like, especially on SmackDown, those 3-hour shows are being used to elevate the tag team division and the women's division. And it's in a slowly but surely type of way. But if you turn on the show now and you watch for it, it's almost like under our nose. Oh, there is a lot going on with the women's division, and there is a lot going on with the tag team division. And I think you'd say the same thing about NXT, and you got a ton of women killing. I mean, women have been main eventing Raw kind of regularly this year. So I think you got all the potential in the world for a sick Evolution show. And I really hope it lives up to that hype, because it'd be cool to see it happen far more regularly. And I think it's something that people have asked for to happen. And really it's less than 2 months away, which is wild, man. Summer is moving very, very quickly. Like I said, we did do emergency podcast this week. We did an emergency podcast on Wrestlemania. Moving, we don't know to where. It was announced on Thursday, I believe, by New Orleans, that even though it was announced by The Rock, once again, those words don't come to fruition, unfortunately, that WrestleMania is not going to be in New Orleans, but we don't know where it's going to be. Triple H records a video on Friday that comes out before SmackDown that WrestleMania 42 will not be in New Orleans. However, they are getting the Money in the Bank Premium Live event in 2026. What's interesting about that announcement is that in 2026, the Money in the Bank ladder match, or the Money in the Bank Premium Live event, will be on August the 29th. So about 2 months, maybe a little more, later than usual, we're getting the Money in the Bank Premium Live event. I've seen people try to make something out of this. It's interesting in terms of the schedule shifting. I do wonder if technically the winner of this year's Money in the Bank ladder matches have more time to cash in, right? Technically this year only. Usually it goes from one Money in the Bank to the next Money in the Bank. I wonder if they'll have 365 days or if they'll have like 14 and a half months because next year's is delayed. I don't know for sure. And I don't know who would need to take up the whole 14 and a half months. But, like I watched one thing where it was like, well, now there's less time before WrestleMania. And it's like, it's still happening at the end of August. You still have a long time before WrestleMania. And also, I don't know if Money in the Bank, aside from the Money in the Bank match happening at WrestleMania, there have been cash-ins at WrestleMania, but there have been cash-ins not at WrestleMania as well. There have been cash-ins at Money in the Bank. There have been cash-ins everywhere. So, I don't think that it really adds much of a wrinkle into anything other than the fact that it does change the schedule, and change is scary sometimes for us wrestling fans. I wonder, it makes me wonder where shows will go. Now, to me, Money in the Bank, and maybe it's because it's a newer thing, like when they move WrestleMania later and later, I start to go, oh my. Like, it doesn't make a difference, but I go, oh my. I think it made a little bit of a difference this year. I think it made people think that the build to WrestleMania was slower than they realized it was because they're used to it paying off by the beginning of April instead of the end of April. But that's just a matter of people, getting used to it, of us getting used to it. So yeah, I don't think you have the same sort of build up to Money in the Bank. I think if Royal Rumble got moved to a different time of year, it'd be weird. I don't think they could do SummerSlam much. I mean, it would have to be in the summer, right? Survivor Series getting moved would be super weird. Survivor Series not happening in November would be a weird thing, but, could happen. Who knows what's going to happen? But we did a full, and also, we don't know where WrestleMania is going to go. Heavily rumored Las Vegas. It comes back to Vegas, which, I mean, okay, they got all the venues, right? So I have no idea, honestly. I don't know. So we did an emergency podcast all about it. We did an emergency podcast about WrestleMania. We did an emergency podcast about the Wyatt Six returning on SmackDown. And we did an emergency podcast about Cody Rhodes returning at Saturday night's main event. So if you missed any of those emergency podcasts, make sure that you go back either on the audio feed via Apple, Spotify, wherever you get it, or here, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can watch all those podcasts as well at youtube.com/NotSamWrestling. However you're getting that content, make sure you're leaving ratings, reviews. Make sure you're hitting thumbs up on the YouTube, leaving comments, subscribe. And now we go to emails. If you want to chime in, my email address is notsamwrestling@gmail.com. notsamwrestling@gmail.com is the email address if you want to contribute to the show. So many controversial things happening. I have noticed the uptick that the anti-WWE, the I have a problem with everything WWE content seems to be hitting the algorithm in a big way because new creators are creating YouTube channels just strictly devoted to figuring out ways to complain about everything. So, if you're one of those people who think I'm being too positive, I do love it. I absolutely adore when people, they'll leave a comment or a review on the podcast or whatever, right? And they go, man, I liked Sam before he was a shill for WWE. Fine. Point me to the podcast. What are we, 11 years into this thing? 11 years of Not Sam Wrestling. People were calling me a shill from year 2. People call me a shill. I was a shill way before it was fashionable. The people who get called shills now were calling me a shill then, or they weren't even in the business. Okay? And now everybody gets called a shill at one point or other. I'm the original shill. Okay? This idea that the world around me changes. I don't change. I watch wrestling the way I watch wrestling, and I talk to you about it the way I talk to you about it. That's who I am. It's what I like to do, and hopefully you like it as well. Let me know if you like it or not by emailing me, notsamwrestling@gmail.com. That's notsamwrestling@gmail.com. We go to Tanner, who says, happy Memorial Day weekend, my lord. Of course, referring to me by my name, the Lord of the Marks. On Thursday, my second daughter was born. Congratulations, Tanner. That's fantastic. What a time she's being born into for professional wrestling. On Friday, I went home to stay with the firstborn, and I received a photo of my wife watching SmackDown with our newborn. That's the way to raise him. My son's first episode of Monday Night Raw was in the maternity wing. He watched his first episode of Raw in the hospital. Can I tell you for a fact that I did not sign a deal with WWE while we were in the hospital with my wife giving birth to my third child? I can't say that didn't happen. Who knows? Who's to say? I love wrestling. The fact that my wife didn't want to miss a show and watch from the hospital felt like the coolest thing ever. It is the coolest thing ever. That's why I felt that way. I have 2 questions. Number one, first is, how does your wife feel about wrestling? My wife is not a wrestling fan per se, but she knows more about wrestling through osmosis than most fans know about wrestling. She knows it all and has known it all. My wife spent time with Stardust. Okay. That's the level we're talking. So she knows it all, but is not like if I wasn't around, she's not turning it on. Second question is about Charlotte and Alexa. Do you think the black cape on Charlotte and the way Alexa is talking that this could lead to an evil queen gimmick? Personally, I feel like Alexa can only be a babyface right now with how over she is, but she could absolutely help Charlotte get into nuclear heel status because she's just that good. Well, I mean, No, I don't think she's going to make Charlotte more of a heel. I think if Alexa's going to get involved with Charlotte, unless Charlotte's going to turn on Alexa, it's going to make Charlotte more of a babyface. Charlotte is in nuclear heel territory. Charlotte's a heel for every definition of the word. Charlotte is a villain. She doesn't need any help getting there from Alexa Bliss or anyone else. But I am very intrigued with the Charlotte Alexa Bliss story. I love the idea of Charlotte. It's almost, you know what it could be similar to? This is what I would love to see happen. I would love to see go back to late summer 1991, right before the Ultimate Warrior left WWE. And the vignettes of Jake the Snake Roberts and the Ultimate Warrior. Summer of 1991, the Ultimate Warrior was convinced that he needed to find his darker side. And Jake the Snake Roberts was there guiding him through all of it. And the idea was at the end, Jake the Snake Roberts turns heel on Warrior, and then Warrior comes back for revenge. We go to Warrior versus Jake the Snake Roberts. Unfortunately, Warrior was out of the company before we got there. But I love the idea of Alexa Bliss in the Jake the Snake Roberts role and Charlotte Flair in the Ultimate Warrior role. And it doesn't have to end the same way. But just the idea of Charlotte really realizing for the first time that she doesn't have the status that she used to. That maybe she is off a beat. That maybe that this new generation is doing something that she isn't able to match with. And what does she have to do? Well, now she has to go to Alexa Bliss, and Alexa Bliss is going to guide her through the minefields. I think that Charlotte and Alexa having a Warrior Jake Roberts feel would be very entertaining for me. I think it'd be very, very good. Spencer writes in from Ontario. I'll start off by acknowledging my podcast tribal chief. Hope you and the family are well. This is how good we're doing. 5, 2. I wanted to see what you think about this. They have Rhea Ripley win the Money in the Bank briefcase, keeps her momentum going. Then they have either the women's world title or the women's WWE title as the main event of Crown Jewel in Perth, and then have Rhea cash in her Money in the Bank in her home country on her birthday, October 11th, to become the WWE Women's Champion or Women's World Champion again. Here's how I would do that. I would have Rhea win the briefcase, if she's going to win the briefcase. And I'm not necessarily pro that, because I don't love people winning the briefcase that could just get a shot at the title anyway, right? But if you're going to have her do that, I would have her win the briefcase. And then I would have her not be booked on the Perth show. And I would have it be like I would have her do like a podcast interview. Maybe go to a guy's basement, right? And do an interview on, say, Notsam Wrestling, where she mentions that, well, I'm not terribly happy about this, and just build a little chatter on the internet that Rhea is annoyed that she's not going to the show, that Rhea is annoyed that she wasn't booked on the show, right? And have people don't do a storyline on television about it. Don't ever cut a promo about it. Have her do it on the podcast. And then have people actually believe that she ain't booked. And then have her pull a Seth Rollins. Or not even make it a triple threat. Like have it could be Charlotte beating somebody. And then Rhea's music hits. Or Liv Morgan beating somebody. And then Rhea's music hits. It's got to be a heel, right? And Rhea's music hits. And the crowd goes nuts. And Rhea surprises everybody by winning the title. That's the only way I would do it. It would maintain the integrity of the briefcase and give you that mega pop. But I would love that. That's the moment that I would try to make happen. Let's see. This is from John, who writes in, is it too far-fetched to consider the Theory Waller turn being part of the Seth story? With Theory being lined up to turn babyface, surrounding him with Sammy and Punk would give him more notoriety as a babyface, as Waller could be your comedic Sammy Uso character for Seth. That's not, to me... Grayson Waller and Austin Theory lose matches. The only way that I would have either Grayson Waller or Austin Theory join Seth's group is if Austin Theory surprised everybody by turning on Grayson Waller and doing it in a really brutal way. Like Austin Theory just destroyed and beat down Grayson Waller with no humor, no nothing. Like left him in a heap, stretchered him out, and then developed this real mean streak to the point that you believed it, and then they brought him in? Maybe. But as it stands, no. Because like I said, like the idea of, I don't know if I can get past Bronson Reed. I don't know if I can get past Braun Breaker. So I can't even think about Seth Rollins. You don't have that same vibe right now with Austin Theory or Grayson Waller. You know, like they had, like Austin Theory and Grayson Waller didn't want to fight Sheamus. Sheamus had no problem fighting them. Sheamus would probably look at Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed very, very differently than he looked at Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. So I think that that's what you need for the Seth faction. But if you had Austin Theory get violent and mean, that's the only time it's a maybe for me. Raj writes in, do you think more members will be added to Heyman's stable, or is Reed the last member? P.S. Halliburton went full heel on us. It's hard to be mad at him after hearing the interview on Raw Recap. Okay, second question first. Raj, I felt the same way, man. He really did. Halliburton has made our life miserable here in New York. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton is the devil in New York. But man, after talking to him on Raw Recap, I was like, there's this little thing in me that's happy for him as a person. He was like amazing on that show. If you haven't looked at the interview that Megan and I did with Tyrese Halliburton, watch it, because it's like, he's such a wrestling fan. He's such a good dude. But yeah, no, he's making our lives really miserable in New York right now. And I don't know if Bronson Reed's going to be the last member, but like I said earlier, it ain't Heyman's stable. It's Seth Rollins' stable. Ravith writes in, to the only podcast tribal chief. That's right. How about this one? Where is it? Oh, there it is.
I love you solo.
He ain't said that in about 6 months. If WrestleMania 39 and 40 for Cody mirrored a similar story arc to Rocky 1 and 2, does 41 mirror Rocky 3, i.e. heel Cena, the clubber laying, in Cody's story? Does Cody eventually get his retribution versus heel Cena and regain the title from Cena? Yeah, I could see that. I could see heel Cena being the clubber laying character. And maybe R-Truth is Apollo Creed. I don't know. I mean, honestly, Apollo Creed would have to be Roman Reigns, right? So it's almost like John Cena would have to put down Roman Reigns to truly be the Rocky story. And then Cody Rhodes comes after John Cena to get his belt back. Yeah, that's probably what you would have to do to get close enough to really turn this into Rocky 3. Avik writes in, what's the haps from London? Now that Cody will most likely not be in the Money in the Bank match, who's your updated pick? LA Knight. Yeah. Who do I think is going to win the men's Money in the Bank ladder match? I think it would depend on who's... the field is not wide enough. Let's get together next week and talk about who I would like to see win the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Next week we will discuss, Avik. I promise you. It's too wide of a field right now. Rosie and Jamal fell down. I'm sorry. We had 3 minutes and we passed it. Steven writes in, Stephen Perth. Greetings to my OPTC from Perth, Western Australia. Not too far away for... I hope. Like you, I was excited for Cody's return to Saturday night's main event, but can you expand on the significance of him returning on Rusev Day? Of all days for Cody Rhodes to return. And you wonder if that was them telling you that in the future we are going to see Rusev versus Cody. The idea that they would have Cody return on the Saturday night's of main event that's taking place on the same day as Rusev Day, that does make you think. Things that make you go, You know what I mean? Chris writes in, Sam, huge respect to my one true podcast tribal chief. Thank you. Come on, man. You know the UK fans have been struggling with spoilers in your show titles. Oh, I have to unsubscribe every PLE weekend, and I don't want to do that because you're the best in the business. There's no reason for it. It ain't doing anything for SEO. Come on, man. Well, I mean, I don't know if it ain't doing anything for SEO. If people are going to search for it, let's keep it civil. Please understand. I was a heel manager once, and I won't hesitate to cut a promo on you so savage it will split the earth in half. Chris, I want you to know something. I don't know if you know much about me outside of this wrestling podcast, but I would dare you to cut a heel promo on me. I dare anybody to cut a heel promo on me. It's gonna get ugly. Okay, you have no idea the roads that I've been down. However, that's the one thing. You want to have a civil conversation? This is a perfect place for it. You want to make threats? Let's make threats. You want to go nuts? Come on. Let's get nuts. I got that a couple times. I am a little bit more because I see the way people, and I want you guys to have Notsam Wrestling as a part of your life. So maybe I'm not changing the title on the YouTube, obviously, because that is all about SEO, search engine optimization. But maybe I can do a little better on the titles, on the emergency pods. The Monday titles won't change, but maybe I can do a little better on the emergency pod situations. Okay, give me another chance if you're in the UK, because I got this more than once this week, and I do want to, I'm not living in a bubble here. So, yeah, I can title a podcast. Instead of saying Cody Rhodes returns, whatever. Saturday night's main event emergency podcast, massive. I'll figure something out. I'm listening, guys. I'm listening. Hello, Samuel, writes Patrick. I've listened to your roadmap on Cena's final tour week after week. However, I've yet to hear anything about a potential finale opponent being Edge. Edge did an interview, I think, where he said he had 18 months left on his contract, which brings him to November, December. Watching Saturday night's main event, Cole just mentioned Edge's name during the cage match. Everything counts. Come on, dude. Edge ain't coming. I mean, he's in AEW. I don't know what you like. People bring this up. Like, you could just say, okay, cool. I think MJF's going to be John Cena's final opponent. What do you like? If that were to be the case, that'd be great. But I mean, if his contract is literally up in December, what do you think? His contract's going to be up, and they're going to bring back real quick to fight John Cena and then figure it out from. Come on. I just don't think timing's working out for it. Connor writes in. Hi, Sam. I acknowledge you, my PTC. Thank you so much for calling out the irritating crowd chants on your emergency podcast. Watching SmackDown with my breakfast on a Saturday morning usually sets me up nicely for the day, but those awful chants made me so irate that I ended up researching intelligence. All right, listen. We're not gonna install Savannah. Are the population of Savannah in the U.S. generally low intelligence? No, that's not accurate. Okay, thank you. I'm glad ChatGPT told you that was not accurate, because it's not just Savannah. It happens everywhere, and I'm done with it. Okay. Kevin writes in, hello, sir. My name is Kevin, and I have an email here that I think you're going to think is pretty cool. I think you're going to think it's pretty cool era rock. I would love to have that come back. I've been listening through your show episode by episode for the last year. Wow. And the amount of times you have correctly predicted storylines, events, results has been incredible. I'm on episode from July 29th, 2024, and you just predicted, as far-fetched as it sounds, that Jey Uso would win the Royal Rumble. I predicted that in July of 2024? How lit am I? Like, do you ever think about that? Like, do you ever go around going like, how is Sam so lit? I think about that all the time. I got to go back. Somebody go back for me, because I'm not so lit that I want to listen to my own stuff. But somebody go back. July 29th, 2024, you predicted that Jey Uso would win the Royal Rumble. How do you do this black magic, sir? Because I'm so lit. Love the show. Can't wait to be caught up and listen weekly. The best part about it is, if you listen to the podcast 2-3 weeks later, I'm actually catching you up because my predictions are so accurate. July, did I really, on the 29th of July, predict Jey Uso was going to win the Royal Rumble? Somebody check in on that for me, because if so, it's going to make me very happy. This is the last email of the day. You're spot on with Logan joining Seth and Breaker. If you start looking back, every single time that Paul Heyman speaks, he talks up Logan Paul. Everything counts, right? Heyman's been putting Logan Paul over since the beginning. I could still see Logan Paul winning, by the way. I mean joining, by the way. After the Money in the Bank match, that's in 2 weeks, right? what's Logan Paul doing after Money in the Bank? I could still absolutely see him being a fourth member of Seth Rollins' faction. I will leave you with that to speculate wildly upon. If you're going to do it, put it in a podcast review on Spotify or Apple. Put it in a comment on YouTube. Subscribe on whatever platform that you're listening to this on or watching this on. Hit 5 stars on Apple or Spotify. Leave a thumbs up on YouTube. Interact with this in any way possible. Tell all your friends about it. Notsam Wrestling is gangbusters right now. I'm loving it, buddy. I'm loving it. Hope you are too. Talk to you soon. Have a good one, everybody.